This is Shane, Hurricane Helms, and you're listening to Over the Top Rope Podcast. And if not, what's up with that?
Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 30. Yes, episode 30 of the flagship podcast of the Win Column Sports Network. Welcome to Over the Top Rope, part of Backbreaker Media, and proudly sponsored by Beercade YEG, where you can find Hayden and I, the Brothers of Discussion, live prior to every WWE pay-per-view, including February 17th's Elimination Chamber. Come hang out with Hayden and I. Come and have a couple of $4 drinks. I know Hayden and I both certainly will be, and enjoy the pay-per-view at the home of Edmonton Wrestling. But right now, thank you for joining us on this week's OTTR. I am Spencer, your host. Joining me, my previously mentioned brother of discussion, Hayden Love. Hayden, welcome to episode 30, man. Can you believe it?
No, I really can't. I'm in disbelief right now.
It's pretty inspiring to me that we made it this far, and nobody yet has gone out and said, these guys need to be taken off the airwaves because they're so offensively bad at what they do.
Are you actually inspired by something like that?
I'm pretty inspired. It's inspired me to keep going this far.
Yeah, as always. It's like a nice compliment.
Anybody ignoring the fact that we're learning what we're doing on here, and there have definitely been some learning moments on this show that we've just sort of let slide through it. You know what I mean? But thank you for joining me once again. Very excited to be here with you. We've got a lot to talk about, both from, like we like to say on the show, from the WWE to the great wrestling here in the province of Alberta. I guess let's start with the WWE before we get to Alberta, sort of here in the end segments, work our way back home, I suppose. The WWE announced recently that the next edition of the Superstar Shakeup, or what they're calling the 2019 edition of the Superstar Shakeup, like it's some sort of annual scheduled thing that they do, which it's not.
Hasn't it been yearly, though?
They've done 3, and it's been 4 years since the brand split.
Yeah.
Because weren't there there were like 2 years between the first two, weren't there?
I believe so.
Either way, I'm very, very excited. It's been announced that it won't be obviously coming to Edmonton, but will be coming to Montreal for 2 nights. Very excited. Hayden, general thoughts on, I guess, the first international Superstar Showdown.
That's what they're billing it as.
I'm pretty excited about it.
Hey, Montreal's the right city for it.
It's cool to even see cities like even Toronto or Montreal. Like, yes, they're bigger cities, but they're Canadian big cities, so no one ever really looks at them as big cities.
And I went to a live event in Montreal something like 2.5 years ago, and I hate using the term, but it was freaking electric. But
it was awesome, man, even from what you've shown me of it, the videos and that you took at it.
And there was a full capacity crowd for a house show, which is a big thing. And I mean, you and I can just bitch and moan about not getting any WWE shows, and we have a right to that. WWE didn't come to Edmonton for like 4 years or 3 years.
It was what, February 2017?
I think it was.
Somewhere
so
around
coming
there?
up on 3 years at this point. But on the flip side of that, one of the unexpected benefits is that anytime they come here, they always have a wild crowd. Because for those that are unwilling or you're unable to travel out of the country, like it's wicked when you have WWE come to Toronto, like when you and I went to Survivor Series.
Crowd was nuts.
Montreal. Yeah, exactly. And it's always a sellout, which just makes it that much better.
Absolutely, man. And we've long said on this show, in the just over a year, 1 year anniversary was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I know. Another inspirational takeaway from
this
podcast.
This is going to be the Inspiration Podcast. That's what we found our title.
I'm going to listen to this while I go to the gym.
Don't let your dreams be dreams, everybody. No, but like you said, when we went to Toronto, it was nuts. Montreal is nuts every time. And I think a large part of that is because they've got such great Canadian talent on the roster right now. Like, I mean, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are the first two I'll always look at just because of how much I enjoy those two wrestling.
Rightfully
Obviously
so.
Being out right now.
Natalya.
Should be back by that point. Absolutely, Natalya Neidhart. Ty Dillinger is still, I think, a great wrestler, a guy who's severely underrated.
TJ Wilson, before he messed his neck up.
Tyler Breeze, to me, same sort of thing. One of the most underrated wrestlers in the world, I think, even by this point.
Kyle O'Reilly.
Right? So the Canadian talent is out there. So very, very excited for the Superstar Shakeup. Do you think that they could, let's talk about Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn first, use this as an opportunity to bring them both back on the same night? Or do you see them, I know Kevin Owens is closer to being cleared than Sami Zayn, but I've got no idea what their status is. I know people were talking about a Royal Rumble return for Owens, but
Well, that's exactly it is. I think it's dependent on their time frames for their return.
Mhm.
Because like you said that Owens is coming back from 2 knee surgeries, which seemed like they were fairly minor to begin with. So he's supposedly already back in the ring. Like he wrestled,
had his first match with Adam Cole.
Exactly. Ended in a neck breaker.
Hip toss.
Pardon me.
No
Sorry
worries.
about that. And then
Historical accuracy is one thing we pride ourselves here on this podcast.
And they were pegging Zayn for I think it was like a May return or April, May,
I think there was some
that.
loose talk around like WrestleMania, but that's just speculation. I have no idea. The guy had double shoulder surgery. Like you can't underestimate how insane that is. The guy's nuts. I love Sami Zayn.
And it also depends on whether or not they're planning on bringing them back as a tag team. Or
yeah,
at least
or an alliance. Yeah, like they sort of had prior because they weren't really known as a tag team.
Yeah, and no doubt they're both going to get huge pops when they return. Like no question in my
As they
mind.
should.
But it just depends on which direction they take it. And honestly, like I can't even begin to speculate about this because there are unlimited scenarios that they could go in with this. Like they could trade Owens to SmackDown, keep Zayn on Raw, or vice versa. Break them up, have them feud, so on and so forth.
The only reason that I think they'll both come back to Raw is both of them have already had like, to get back to the overall superstar shakeup. They've already sort of had their big trade moments, for lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah.
They both already moved over to SmackDown, got their huge pops there. They both already moved over to Raw. They got their huge pops there. And for me, it's not the best comparison, but like it's like when the Big Show continues to turn heel and face. It's like at some point everything gets old, and whether that's them just switching brands, because on one hand I see why they would do it. It's because they've always had sort of complete stories on both brands. Like it made logical sense to trade them both to SmackDown when they did. It made sense to trade them both back to Raw when they did, because their storyline with Shane McMahon had concluded. Storyline with Daniel Bryan had concluded, move them on. But at this point, like, you can bring, I think Kevin Owens is going to come back I think they'll both come back as faces. I don't know how well you can bring them both back as heels.
No.
And even if you do, I think just from that one vignette that they showed right after the McMahons came back, seems like Zayn will be more likely to come back as a heel if it was to be one of the two.
I'd love to see Owens come back as a heel as well.
I think they just set him up so well for a face turn with the way that they wrote him off with Lashley.
Absolutely. And he's a very effective face wrestler too. But
Which we've never seen in WWE.
Kevin Owens' face run?
Well,
yeah,
I guess
aside from his first match.
I was just going to say.
And his last match as well, I guess. But that's pretty much it. He's been a heel the entirety of the time. There hasn't been a day that he's been in WWE that he hasn't really been a heel.
Yep. That's completely fair. So they may not be two guys that I would want to see move, but where I wanted to go with this is, what are some moves I guess maybe you either want to see or think should happen, or what are a couple things you want to see on the 15th and 16th, or 14th and 15th, whichever. What do you want to see in Montreal?
And the biggest one that I've always been anticipating has been a straight trade like Rollins for Styles. But at this point, it's dependent on whether or not Rollins walks out of WrestleMania with the Universal Championship. Because in the same way that Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn like logically finished up with SmackDown, you could do the same with AJ Styles. He's been there for 3 years, the entirety of the brand split, or 4 years, I guess, if we're measuring it that way.
Yep.
He's been there the entirety of the time, aside from the one match that he had on Raw after.
Yeah, he's had
Extreme
his brief cameos. He had when he first came to WWE prior to brand split, but
and that's the one that I always saw happening. But once again, it just depends on the championship match at WrestleMania. Outside of tag teams, and once again, depends on whether or not they win a championship. I could see Real Rival going to SmackDown in a straight trade for the Usos, something like that.
I'd love to see that.
Maybe the New Day going back to Raw, but I could see them as just pillars of the SmackDown tag division for the time being.
I think you need to separate
Sanity to Raw as well.
They need to do something with Sanity.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe to Raw, just because, again, we never claim that we've got our own sources. It is all just speculation for the most part, at least as far as WWE goes.
Yeah.
We know some people in Alberta.
They shouldn't be saying that, Spencer.
We don't know anybody in Alberta.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, neither you nor I. But there's always been. Sorry, now where was I going with that? Sorry, there's always been speculation on Styles moving. There's always been speculation on the Usos moving, that sort of stuff. But they never have. And I do think it is about time that maybe you don't move the both of them. Because like you said, even outside of a linchpin of the tag team division, you need a linchpin on SmackDown.
Well, you have that in Daniel Bryan now.
That's very true.
And The Miz as well.
That's also very true. But I think you're maybe more likely to see the Usos move than Styles, purely on the fact that, like, I don't think there's an even trade. You know what I mean? And there's very obviously, like, winners or losers. But at the end of the day, you can always sort of look at the rosters and be like, okay, the theory behind this was this guy was moved for this guy. Like, who was it last time? I think it even was sort of the Miz for Kevin Owens, because they were both very recently champions, both bigger names. You have the smaller ones like Apollo Crews for Jinder Mahal.
And outside of that, like,
at least I should say initially Jinder Mahal. Now that is former WWE, former US champion Jinder Mahal.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me, Spencer.
You're very welcome. I still want Lesnar Mahal.
You and I both. Jesus, I feel robbed of
right?
that matchup.
100%.
Sincerely.
The dream match we never got.
Talk about a boss fight.
And they teased it too. That was the thing that upset me at Survivor Series, or just prior to Survivor Series this year. They teased it with Mahal.
I would love to see a face-off in the Royal Rumble.
I'd love to see Lesnar get traded to SmackDown.
See, and here's the thing is some of these trades can be contingent on the TV deal as well. Like, even realistically speaking.
That's completely true, Hayden.
Like, it looks as if Lynch is already going to Raw. Because logically, she's going to be winning the Raw Championship. But
knock on wood, I don't want to jinx that. And that's nothing against Ronda.
And there's been talk of putting Roman Reigns to SmackDown before his, unfortunate illness. And Ronda Rousey is in the exact same league, if not a completely different league than Roman Reigns. So I think she's probably going to move over at some point as well.
I think it would be very, very smart to have someone like that. Like, they don't really have. That's why I thought it was so cool when they basically brought The Undertaker on as a SmackDown superstar.
Mm-hmm.
At least
when he threatened the SmackDown roster before Survivor Series.
Exactly. I thought it was very, very cool. I have no objection with part-timers. Don't get me wrong. And I don't even like using that phrase correctly.
Well,
because
within reason.
Yeah, limited appearance people. And I think that there is something worth having in a big name like that, exclusive to one brand. I've never liked this idea of a free agent. Like, even with Becky Lynch, I love that there's a reason for her continually being on 2 shows.
Yeah.
I think that everything needs to have a reason. And if you were to maybe move, say, a Brock Lesnar, even if it was for something like, say he leaves for the UFC, trade him to SmackDown, he says, I'm not going to SmackDown, and backs off, or he wrestles a match and, like, whatever from there. But I think
he's got roots on SmackDown in the same vein as The Undertaker.
100%. So I think it'd be very cool.
That'd actually be wicked.
It would be very, very cool to see Ronda Rousey. As far as I know, she's never appeared on SmackDown, has she?
No, not to my knowledge either.
Right? Unless there's been something in, and I don't believe there was.
And have we seen Rousey Asuka yet?
No. Right?
Another reason to move her over.
And I think something like that would be great. Again, you can never really predict people's time off. I don't even know if the rumors about Rousey are to be true. Nobody really does, it seems like. So I just think that it would be cool because you do add that sort of statement to it. I think that a major missing from the Superstar Shakeup for years past has been, I understand it's sports entertainment, but I dislike the fact that for something like this, they don't play up the sports side of it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because you and I have, like, memories of sitting and watching, like, TSN on Hockey's Trade Center and that sort of stuff. And, like, for me, it's cool to watch, like, the breakdown of a trade or hear a general manager call in. Like, even the exclusives that they do online with, like, your Apollo Crews or the people they don't show on TV.
Mm-hmm.
I love the stuff like that because I love hearing why moves were made and sort of the sports side of sports entertainment.
And credit where it's due. It was sort of in a similar manner to TSN or something like that. The first year that they did the draft, when they were doing the brand split, like there was the initial war over the WWE Championship with the Was it Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns? Was it the triple?
Yeah, that
threat?
was when they did. So Ambrose won it, leaving
Yeah.
Money in the Bank, and then was it Battleground? They did the Shield triple threat.
Yes, exactly.
Think about
at Battleground.
And I was gonna say, just a side note here from a side note, which is what we always do, I suppose. Like, think about the fact that this could potentially be like the only Shield triple threat, this Mania main event that people talked about for years, happened at Battleground.
Yeah. With little to no build, if any. Like, they just shoehorned it into the brand extension build.
I was going to say, like, to me, it wasn't even like a bad build. The reason it was a bad build was because it wasn't what it could have been for something like that.
It wasn't about the internal divisions that fractured the Shield. It wasn't about the betrayal. It was about the fact that, they were going to...
Where's the WWE Championship going?
Yeah.
A beautifully, beautifully put statement, Hayden. So we brought up big names that we want to see moved. You brought up your Styles, the Usos. For me, I would love to see the championships change brands again. I would love to see the United States Championship back on Raw, the Intercontinental on SmackDown. I think they did a great job on SmackDown of making both belts feel prominent when they had the Intercontinental on there. And I think that is because the IC has been built much, much better than the US Championship has been over the last little bit.
And still because, 2016 till early 2017 SmackDown was some of the best programming.
That's put on that's completely true. But I think you can even, if you make that move, you sort of get people reminiscing. And, like, people do still see Raw as the flagship show.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that SmackDown, you talk about Raw's rough patch right now, SmackDown has been the better program for the better part of 2 to 3 years. At least.
Absolutely.
So if you make the move for the the United States Championship to Raw, I think you maybe give it that little bit of shine there as well. So whether that's R-Truth, if he be the guy at the time who maybe we talk about in a little bit here because we never prepared for that one, but I've got an opinion on that. You move R-Truth or you move whoever is the champion at the time, you move, again, Bobby Lashley or whoever it is at the time to SmackDown, I think would be a smart move again.
One of the biggest barriers to that is that the U.S. Championship, at least in my eyes, is always going to be looked at as secondary to the IC Championship. So it's
basically like a tertiary belt.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect way of looking at it.
Thank you.
Yeah, perfect use of the term tertiary.
I'm very happy. I think we need a word of the day segment on here, or at least send out a word of the day.
Can you do a Gromit impersonation?
No.
Was he the guy that would always give the word of the day?
Oh no, that was Pee Wee Herman.
No, on Sesame Street.
Oh, I don't know.
Fuck, who knows? Whatever.
People watch Sesame Street.
Yes, absolutely.
Still running. I love that show. Do a great job.
Yeah, great show. Thanks, Sesame Street.
Thanks, programs.
Former guest host of Raw, Sesame Street. Elmo and Big Bird. And all of them, man.
As our friend Yukon Jack likes to say, everything truly is wrestling.
Yeah. But, hell, where was I? United States Championship.
We're talking about tertiary belts.
Tertiary belts, yes. So as you said, it was logical to move the IC Championship back to Raw at the time because you had Brock Lesnar as the Universal Championship never showing up. And realistically speaking, if you're looking at championships right now, at least in my eyes, once again, it's got to be the WWE Championship, Universal, Intercontinental, and then United States.
Yep.
Pardon me.
Yep.
So it functioned as the flagship belt of the flagship show. But once you see Seth Rollins ostensibly take the Universal Championship, I'm tripping over these U's.
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
There are too many U's to piss off.
The Universal United, bleh.
Making me feel like a damn fool.
Don't worry about it, Hayden.
But yeah, I'm gonna see that. I'm with you. I see a jump back.
I think it'd be a great idea.
Yeah.
Especially even, I would have no issue with that trade being made with the current champions. Because just to finish it off here...
Lashley on SmackDown would be sweet.
Well, and you know what? Just to finish it off here with my final thought of this segment, Hayden, I think that R-Truth is the United States champion, despite the fact that I love both Nakamura and Rusev, is a solid, solid decision on WWE's part. Purely on the fact that he is a guy, not the best in-ring guy. He's got a ton of personality. He will bring attention to the championship. He's one of the more over guys on SmackDown. And I think if you were to move him, you would likely have to move Carmella as well, I would think, as part of that.
She's another SmackDown lifer at this point.
That's completely true. And I think that if you were to move her over to Raw, again, she's over as well. And I think that they're
a hot commodity.
They're great together, man. They're so much fun. Like,
Tons
I don't
of
even
fun.
want to sit here and say they're over like some dick. Like, they're a ton of fun. And you bring that to Raw, and I think that you could get a lot of people thoroughly enjoying the United States Championship again. Because you know what? I've never been an R-Truth fan. But, like, you can't deny the guy's at the very least entertaining.
Hey, I loved when he smoked a cigarette inside the O2 Arena in England.
He's done a lot of just, like, goofy stuff.
Would you put that within the parameters of goofy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
That was a huge fine for the company, though. But I think this is a good place to throw in our cheap plug for some other podcasts that we...
You know what? I 100% agree with you, as we mentioned at the start of the show here. And before we take a quick break here, we are proud members of Backbreaker Media, a proud member of the WCSN, the Win Column Sports Network. So don't forget to head there for your previews, reviews, and breaking news from the world of wrestling, from the big league promotions right down to the province here in Alberta. When we come back on this week's edition of Over the Top Rope, Hayden and I are going to chat about AEW, as we love to do here on OTTR. We're going to chat about some Alberta wrestling and more, whatever comes to mind, between the brothers of discussion on Over the Top Rope.
If you like podcasts and you are listening to on Backbreaker Media, then you should listen to me, Chris Parrish,
and myself, Manoia,
and the Sounds of Struggle, because we are literally the most entertaining duo you'll ever come across in Western Canadian wrestling, baby.
We talk about things like wrestling
And other sports we like.
wrestling.
But we won't talk about other sports that we don't like, because it's not that kind of podcast.
Like wrestling.
I mean, we like hockey.
And wrestling.
And we like football.
And wrestling.
And we also like to drink beer.
While wrestling.
Well, not while wrestling, but while watching wrestling.
Yes.
Yeah. If you want to get into a conversation with Maniac and Chris Parrish, then you need to tune into the Sounds of Struggle live on Backbreaker Media.
Every Thursday.
Is when we hope to drop, but sometimes Mike Malawany doesn't do his job right.
Or we're too drunk to forget.
Yeah, that happens too.
Yeah.
He can bleep out the swear word, because we weren't supposed to do that.
Oh,
But,
I'll try not to swear. I can't do it.
yeah, let's face it, the two of us, we're real.
And spectacular.
And we're a little bit of all right.
Yeah.
We're also strugglicious.
That we
That
are.
was kind of the key. We're supposed to do strugglicious.
Oh, sorry, I'm drunk.
Yeah. So, if you don't want to listen to us, then no, you're stupid, because we're entertaining. And if you want to listen to us, then come listen to us on Backbreaker Media.
Yeah. What he said.
Later, bitches.
Welcome back to Win Column Sports' flagship podcast, Over the Top Rope, on Backbreaker Media, and proudly sponsored by Beercade YEG, where you can catch Hayden and I prior to every WWE pay-per-view hosting Over the Top Rope Live. But this is this week's edition of Over the Top Rope Recorded. Hayden, thanks for joining me again. Let's talk some All Elite Wrestling. First off, did you catch their rally live, or did you just sort of watch it in playback?
I saw some bits and pieces live, but the vast majority of it I read through our coverage, actually.
Hey, live coverage.
Yeah.
We've got it here on Win Column Sports. Overall thoughts, there are a couple people that I've sort of heard from that were disappointed with this one, but for me, I can't understand for the life of me why they would be.
The only thing I was disappointed in was Omega signing, to be honest. I was I was hoping for an Omega versus Styles match this year.
Okay.
But that's my primary reason for disappointment. Otherwise, there's a lot of promise in the talent that they're just recently signed.
I completely agree, man. I think it's what you said about Omega, just to start there. I do agree with you that I think that he could have a lot more unique matches, or I guess first time ever matches, should he have gone to the WWE.
Mm-hmm.
He's reportedly signed a 4-year contract with All Elite Wrestling that also includes an executive vice president role, similar to Cody and the Young Bucks.
Brings him up to 5 EVPs at this point.
Yeah,
Seems excessive. for such a small company.
You know what? I will withhold my judgment. I don't know enough about the wrestling industry to know what this will really do for their booking.
Mhm.
They're already 4 of the biggest stars in the world, and I think that that's what people are forgetting.
Biggest independent stars in the world for certain.
I'd
If
completely
you
agree.
can even consider them independent wrestlers at this point.
I think that they're, for me, like the big... I think they're sort of the nice little in-between, and the only reason I say that is their marketing is fantastic. They still feel like an independent grassroots wrestling promotion where the Khans have more money than the McMahons. Let's just be blunt here. That's all there is to it. If they chose to, they could do exactly what Vince McMahon was doing, or reportedly doing. I should watch my words here. Reportedly offering people that they would double their contracts if they signed on the spot. Khan could do the exact same thing if he wanted to. I think he's just taking a more tactical approach because if you sign Brock Lesnar, they're actively trying to avoid, hypothetically sign Brock Lesnar, you're actively bringing in the WWE comparisons, and I think they're actively pushing an alternative rather than a competitor.
Well,
and I think there is a big difference, at least marketing-wise, in the way that they're pushing that.
Well, speculatively, they're bringing in a bunch of the top WWE talent, and they've extended prospective offers to some top talent who have not been named for obvious reasons, and how it all just could be, a farce. But you have to wonder. Even with Dean Ambrose's departure, like all signs point to him going to AEW, or at the very least taking a huge amount of time off from wrestling. I think you and I even discussed it on our last podcast or the previous edition before that. Prospective WWE main eventers, or at least the high-level mid-card talent that would be going to AEW if they were released from their contracts.
I agree.
So,
I don't know how many of them actually... I have heard the comparison, like a lot of people when TNA first came around, is they're going to change the game, and I should, first qualify this by saying I don't want to shit on AEW. I am as excited as everyone else is about it, if not more, but there have been a lot of comparisons where, they're going to sign everyone, and they simply, A, won't sign everyone because they're trying to be an alternative to WWE, but B, not everyone is going to either, A, want to go there, or B, it's just not going to be the destination, you know what I mean? Like, for lack of a better way to put it, it's not the end-all, be-all for people leaving WWE. Not everybody's going to ask to get out of their contract. Like, you already see Bandito signing a contract with Ring of Honor. They don't have a working agreement with...
PJ Black just signed with Ring of Honor as well. PCO.
Absolutely.
Marty Scurll didn't even go to AEW.
Which is a lot more major than I think a lot of people are talking about. He is a huge asset to what was formerly the Bullet Club.
He was part of the Elite, wasn't he?
Yeah, I believe so. I think he was still included in that.
He was in all the BTE episodes. Yeah. I didn't watch a single one. But
the reason I would say yes, he is he was on that boy band T-shirt they did.
Yep, true.
But either way, I thought that the rally was awesome purely on the fact that it finally started to make the transition from a promotional event to promoting a wrestling event. The only thing we really got as far as the actual Double or Nothing match card at the initial rally in Jacksonville was Pac versus Hangman Page. Now, obviously they built on that at the rally in Vegas, but I thought it was very, very cool that we can now look and say, okay, at worst, there are 5 matches that we can sort of say, well, it could potentially be 4 now, but 4 to 5 matches that...
Yeah, cross your fingers.
100%, but 4 to 5 matches that potentially could be...
No, great
good
matches.
That's exactly it. Good to great matches. I guess, Hayden, which would you want to start at? Do you want to start at signings? Do you want to start at the match card? I guess a lot of them will play into each other.
Signings.
Cool.
I guess.
Let's start there. For you, who are you most excited about is coming to AEW?
Well, I already said, it's a double-edged sword with Kenny Omega, because I'm going to be excited to see the guy wherever he goes.
100%. He's one of the best in the world.
And especially with the history that he's had with some of the guys, if not, let's say 50% of the guys or 60% of the guys in AEW as of right now. It's hard not to be excited for him showing up.
And we're getting Chapter 3 of Omega versus Jericho.
True. Yeah.
Which is a very, very exciting prospect.
And at the very least, just to quickly move on to another signing, Kota Ibushi, after he recovers from his supposed concussion, He's supposed to be moving on to AEW.
I would be surprised if he signed with anyone exclusively. Though.
He's not going to do that. And I think he's something. I don't want to say special, but he's sort of an anomaly in that he can get away with that.
He's working for WWE semi-consistently and in a semi-prominent spot as an unsigned free agent, which is a pretty insane position to be in.
He's wrestling championship matches for NJPW, and then he's going out the next day and he's shooting fireworks at himself or wrestling a blow-up doll.
He's doing as he pleases. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's wicked to see. It's actually, if we want to get back to the sort of inspirational nature of this edition of
he's an inspiring wrestler.
Exactly, he does what he wants. He's not tied down, and you got to respect that. That just makes it all the more intriguing.
Yep, I completely agree. I think there's a ton of intriguing signings coming out of this. I think the first we have to obviously talk about is the Lucha Bros, Penta El Zero and Rey Fénix. Very excited for the both of them. I don't want to dwell too much on it because I don't like sitting and talking about injuries. You obviously just hope they never happen, and when they do happen, they're minor. If not minor, then full recovery is expected. That is the nice thing in the case of Rey Fénix, but unfortunately injured at AEW's last show and stretchered out, and that's just something you never hope happens, and especially after the statement that they made at the rally on the 7th.
Mm-hmm. That statement being, you just mean
very,
the statement. Okay,
very cool.
I thought you meant a physical statement. I know what you mean
No.
now.
Making a statement at the event was very, very cool to come and see them literally make a surprise appearance. I love a surprise appearance, and I think it's very cool to see them in this press conference sort of way. Mm-hmm. It's unique from what you obviously see in a lot of wrestling. You don't have the big budget that AEW has in sort of an independent setting. No. They're sort of the best of both worlds, at least thus far as that goes. So I think they're very, very exciting to see. But outside of the obvious, couple people I'm really excited about. I'm really excited about Kylie Rae. Super, super exciting to see her signed to a deal. Mm-hmm. I think she'll be a major player for her.
Absolutely.
If you haven't checked her out, I would highly, highly suggest it. Terrific wrestler.
And regardless of whether or not they're going to keep it a tight-knit or a relatively exclusive company in terms of their signings, or whether or not it's going to be a large roster, she's going to make an impact and stand out.
I completely agree. I'm also very excited about Chuck Taylor and Trent, the best friends, signing with AEW, excuse me.
After they supposedly went back on an NJPW commitment.
Just going to say, I think that's... I don't know the politics that go behind and backstage, so I can just give my opinion as a fan, but I think that shows a little bit of how excited even wrestlers themselves are about the promotion.
Yeah.
Kenny Omega and the Elite and those sorts of guys were sort of expected to sign with AEW. At least for myself, I didn't think that Kenny Omega had a chance of signing with WWE once his promotion was announced. But it's very, very cool to see people like, Chuck and Trent, I think, are very, very good wrestlers, if not great wrestlers, and some of my personal favorites. But they're sort of the people who you wouldn't say were a guarantee to go anywhere. I don't know what sort of relationships they have with the AEW executive producers or executive vice presidents. God, that's a long sentence to say.
Absolutely.
But for me, they just seem like people who I guess would play the market a little more. So it's cool to see, they commit to a promotion and then they see like, holy shit, look at what AEW is doing and choose to go there, which give credit where credit's due. Like everyone who's signing here is literally signing on for what could be only one pay-per-view.
True. And at this point, it's difficult to tie it all back to like wrestlers moving between companies, opting to forsake one deal for another in terms of moving to another company. But you and I touched on whomever will be leaving WWE or who prospectively could be making the jump from WWE to AEW. Mm-hmm. But we never talked about all the top talent from NJPW moving to AEW.
None of them, none of Ring of Honor. I don't know any contract situations. As far as I know, nobody's like broken a contract
no.
or anything like that outside of what is, as far as I know, just a verbal commitment, which for me is nothing more than a fart.
Well, no, and it's still a verbal commitment. If you go out of your way and say, yes, we're planning on signing with you, that shows that you're committing to signing with somebody. I'm not saying
somewhat.
that. Yeah, and not saying that. Oh, you know what? Actually, we changed our minds. We're going to be taking off, which is sort of the purpose of a verbal commitment as compared to a written agreement. But
That's fair.
I don't know. That's a different story in and of itself.
Yep.
But think about NJPW shows from the past 2 years, and think about the featured talent. I mean, Okada, Tanahashi, Omega.
NJPW is going to be
The Young
completely
Bucks.
fine, though.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying that. But at this point, like, you've lost Omega, you've lost the Bucks, you've lost the club, AJ Styles, Finn Balor, most of your westernized talent. And
As
you've gotta
far as we
wonder-
know, Jericho is the only guy who's got the ability to still go over to New Japan.
Yeah.
I know that Kenny Omega still had his profile up on New Japan or whatever along those lines where the other guys had been removed. But I do also think, and this isn't a shot against the Young Bucks or anything, but Kenny Omega meant a little more than any of those guys did. Even Jericho
question.
himself
No question.
to New Japan,
Well, he was an IWGP champion. The
right?
other guys weren't.
So that again, I don't mean that to sound like a shot against the Bucks or anything, because I know how important they specifically were as well. But Kenny Omega was something special for that company.
No question.
Either way, Hayden, leading from these signings leads to our first officially announced matches for Double or Nothing in Vegas, May 25th. Hopefully can make it out if my girlfriend lets me and I go to all of her marathons before that. Morgan, who's in the room right now, is sitting there and laughing at me right now. We've got 2 matches that could potentially main event. I just want to talk about them as though Rey Fenix isn't injured, because from all accounts, he is going to be well enough to wrestle in the event. He needs some rest, that sort of thing. But what we've got so far announced is Adam Hangman Page versus Pac as one of what I would assume the main events for the show. We've also got the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon and Rey Fenix. They never officially announced this match, but they all but officially announced this match, and they all but officially announced Bucks versus Bros as the main event, which I think is so cool.
It's a toss-up between those 2 matches as to what's going to main event.
Mm-hmm.
Like, realistically, you could see them crowning the first AEW champion.
You
as the
answered
main
my
event.
question before I asked it. I was going to say, do you think Hangman versus Pac is going to be for the inaugural AEW champion,
With all the
World Heavyweight
discussion
Champion?
and all the plugs or references that they've thrown into their promos, like, it's got to be, unless they're just throwing a curveball and they're going to toss, somebody else in there like Cody if he doesn't undergo his prospective surgery.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, at this point, I got to say that it's got to be.
For me, I know that they've talked a lot about it, but I do think they need to have a reason for those 2 to be the guys going for the championship inaugurally.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Whether
just-
that be...
Imagine if they were just going to award Cody with the AEW belt off the bat.
I think that they need to have, and I think they've done a great job so far, so I have no doubt that they will do it, but this Road to Double or Nothing series they're doing, even outside of being the Elite now, I think you'll see something on there that leads to the reason that Hangman versus Pac is for the championship. I agree with you that it will be. I would be disappointed if there was just to be, like you prototypically see, like a tweet that comes out one day that's like, breaking, this is for the championship.
Yeah, it's always nice to have a reason.
I think that it is one of the fundamental things you need in wrestling.
One
Is a
of the
reason
laws.
is a reason for everything. A reason for doing a move, a reason for booking a match, a reason for, like, even if it's an injury angle, or even if they're just like Hangman Page, like literally going up and asking for it 24/7, and they're finally like, fine. Like it could
You
be
can
something,
do it.
Well, it could be something as stupid as that, but I would rather have a stupid reason than no reason at all. The other confirmed match that we got on the card, we got something that I'm very excited about, and you'll probably be able to elaborate a little better than I will on. We've got SCU versus SEMA and some OWE talent. 2 members of the OWE roster of his choosing, according to the Fallen Angel, Christopher Daniels. I'm super excited from this, even just from the clips that you've shown me, but I guess explain a little bit about OWE to someone who wouldn't even understand it to the small level you've given me.
China's first pro wrestling promotion.
Okay.
Yeah. Outside of the shows that WWE has run in Shanghai and larger cities, this is supposedly like the first televised pro wrestling promotion taking place in China. Like 1.5 billion people, 1.4 at this point.
At least,
Yeah, within that ballpark, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Like, even if we want to tie this back to WWE's global expansion happening right now, or their sort of focus on global markets, like,
This directly globally expands.
like, dude, it's like, I hate to say it, like, it's 2019. Like, WWF's been around since 1940s, 1950s. Like, the actual name
A
WWF.
little later than that, I think.
Yeah.
Like, it was the WWF. I think that was in the
Yeah, there we go.
mid-50s as like a direct competitor to the NWA.
And you
Because
just think
McMahon
about,
Sr. didn't want to align with the NWA.
and one of the big things is that, understandably so, like, you don't have very many trained wrestlers within China. So they brought in a guy named Sema.
Yes.
And he's relatively renowned. Like, he made an appearance at
I'm not all that familiar with him, so excuse my ignorance.
Oh,
Not just yourself, Hayden, but everyone out there who will shit on me for not knowing.
well, you don't have to beg anybody's forgiveness, because I think the whole thing is that not very many people know about him.
Yeah.
Like, and you think about wrestling trainers and well-known wrestling trainers.
The Bucks gave him a lot of praise.
Absolutely. But supposedly, just outside of my very little knowledge, just based on all the rumors flying around OWE, like, regardless of whether or not there were trainers present, like, there are some absolutely ridiculous athletes in China. Like, you've seen that in the Olympics, and I'm guessing in just like random Reddit GIFs and everything like that happening.
Mhm.
But I guess with Sema, he's the most appropriate trainer that you can find for this day and age. Some of the people that he's trained, what his sort of system was is, while he was based in Japan, he'd invite wrestlers that he thought were notable or held high potential to his dojo. He'd train them, and then he'd send them back out.
Okay.
So a list of the guys that I've got right here: Ricochet, Neville, Sami Zayn, Matt Seidel, Jack Evans, Apollo Crews, both of the Bucks, Johnny Gargano, Austin Aries,
Wow.
Kevin Owens, Chuck Taylor,
Like,
Rich
literally
Swann,
a veritable who's who.
Tony Nese, Roderick Strong, Mark Haskins, and Luke Harper.
That's insane.
So, like, just some of the most athletic wrestlers out there, and some of the most standout wrestlers.
100%.
Out
And
there.
all of them very, like, you mention it, and once you say sort of, and then this goes for anyone, once you mention sort of any of their influences, you can sort of even just start to picture, but like, all of them are such unique wrestlers as well, too, which I think
Within
speaks
their own right, yeah.
100% with that, which I speak as a guy who's not that familiar with them, speaks very, very highly to the quality of training he does.
So I think this is the perfect place to debut Sema himself as the trainer.
Especially
And then
against three guys who were sort of, I hate the phrase, but like westernized as far as like the need for television or the need for like a pay-per-view performance.
No
Because
question.
like they're not going to get a chance. I'm sure they'll wrestle prior, but they're not going to get a chance to wrestle on pay-per-view prior to like literally their biggest matches of their lives.
I think they've
Which
had
is very, very cool. I will always sing the praises of the members of SoCal Uncensored. Like, there are 3 class acts in the ring, outside of the ring, and I am so excited for this match, even after just what you've shown me.
So, and the only 2 shows to my knowledge that OWE has run were both in Kyoto, and there's just like there's a ridiculous amount of footage coming out of those 2 shows. It just shows how ridiculously gifted these guys are. They're fucking maniacs. Pardon my French.
No worries,
Like,
man.
they're athletic freaks of nature, and like
Very cool.
just to only be trained after a year and a half to show some of the stuff that they've done, it's absolutely ridiculous. I'm hyped as hell for this.
I am too, man. Now, a couple other matches that were announced because we got to hit the break here sooner rather than later. Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho. We talked about it a little bit, so no real need to expand here, but a match I'm very excited for should it be confirmed, but I see no reason it wouldn't be confirmed. Another match that was also teased that I would be very excited for, 2 other wrestlers we also mentioned, Kylie Ray versus Nyla Rose, which I think would be a very cool matchup.
2 girls that I legitimately have not seen wrestle before.
I had not really heard a ton about Nyla Rose. Very, very excited to see what she can do because much like OWE, I've seen sort of clips. I've seen what she can do in the ring in brief sort of glimpses. Nothing as far as a full match or anything. So very excited. Kylie Ray, I would highly suggest checking out. Honestly, once we're done recording this, we can check a match out or 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure we will.
100%. That also leaves a couple of people without matches on the card. It also leaves us wanting matches for the guys from AAA. No idea what's going to happen with that announced partnership. So whether it's Sammy Guevara defending his championship or just sort of a showcase match for those guys. Maybe we'll see something on that end. Britt Baker, conspicuously absent, nothing on that card. And Cody, the only member of the Elite without any tentatively teased match. He's been asking on this Double or Nothing, Road to Double or Nothing, web video that he's taking calls on the match. Apparently it's personal. There's been a lot of speculation on Goldust. I think that would be about the coolest match you could book for Cody at this point. I also think it's not going to be the match you get. So I've really got no idea who he could be wrestling. Hayden, any ideas on your part before we take a quick break?
Hell, top of my head, no. You'd reckon Goldust, but as far as I know, outside of Hideo Itami, no releases have been granted. And Goldust is still with WWE, at least for the foreseeable future.
100%. Now, there's just too many names on the independent circuit. I'm sure I'm forgetting people, but
Maybe Flip Gordon.
that could be true.
Maybe Flip.
The thing for me is that he specifically mentioned it was personal. The other contender that I've got in there, we haven't gotten the rubber match between Cody and Nick Aldis.
True. But that's for, I think it's for Ring of Honor at the very least.
Yeah, it's him and Skrull, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Either way, could we see it? Who knows? Let us know your thoughts at us. Tweet us at WC Sports CA on the old Twitter machine, or get a hold of us on Facebook or Instagram at Hayden and I. The Brothers of Discussion are going to take a quick break here so you can hear from our great friends at Power Slam TV, where you can find tons and tons and tons of wrestling content out there from some of the greatest wrestling promotions in the world. And hey, why not check us out on Backbreaker Media? Backbreaker.pivotshare.vod is where you can find some of the greatest independent wrestling in Alberta. If you're not able to personally check the shows out, we highly recommend it. When we come back on this week's edition of Over the Top Rope, Hayden and I are going to tackle off some of the major news in Albertan wrestling because, man, there was some big news after this weekend. When we come back on this week's edition of OTTR, proudly sponsored by Beercade YEG.
Are you tired of the same old pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on Powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 3,000 hours of the best pro wrestling events from over 100 of the biggest names in the industry from over 15 countries around the globe. Get your free trial today at Powerslam.tv.
Welcome back to Over the Top Rope, the flagship podcast of the Win Column Sports Network, and proudly presented on Backbreaker Media. Proudly Albertan, and that is where we are going to finish this day's show. Hayden, lots going on in the Albertan wrestling scene.
Tons.
Very, very exciting things going on in the wrestling scene. I guess, where do we want to start? Last show we went to was RCW together, so do we want to get started there?
Yeah, and I regrettably missed last night's show.
Yep.
What day is it today?
C'est la vie.
Today
Today is
10th. I missed
Sunday the
February.
10th.
Yes, I missed February 9th show.
To timestamp this podcast.
And Chris Parrish's debut for ICW.
And it was a great debut, man. I thought that, number one, it was pretty weird because I thought it was a very good show. The crowd just, I don't know if it was the fact that the show ran late. I'm not sure what on that end, because good show. It was a very, very quiet crowd, which to me is quite the opposite of how it usually is.
Maybe everybody was tired.
Yeah.
Or cold.
Everybody was cold. I think that's what we'll chalk it up to. Everyone was cold, but like you said, Chris Parrish debuting for RCW among other major developments at a big show. A good show. I think it was really, really great the way that he debuted. As always, he cut a great promo to kick it all off. Parrish is one of the best on the mic in the Albertan wrestling scene today. Thought the promo was fantastic. I think one of the great things about him is, as advertised, he spoke about his time in Monster Pro Wrestling, and I think that he does a very, very great job of highlighting what's still great about his last promotion, because not to say anything poor about Monster Pro Wrestling, like they're a great promotion, but there are a lot of opportunities not only for Parrish to be wrestling new faces in Real Canadian Wrestling, but as he said himself, to be wrestling some of the best that he's never had the opportunity to wrestle. I mean, as far as I know, he's never faced off in singles action against current RCW Canadian champion Andrew Hawks. We'll talk about him in a second. He's never faced off with a guy like Christian Strife, who again we'll talk about in a second, because Parrish unfortunately won't be facing Strife for a bit. But it's a very, very...
Has he faced the Universe?
I don't know if he's faced the Universe.
Well,
To be honest with you,
add that to the list.
Universe, get in our DMs. Let us know if you have wrestled Chris Parrish yet. We would be very excited to hear about it. Hasn't wrestled the NVR. He's wrestling Pride in Bruderheim on February 23rd. Highly anticipated match on that end as well. And something else that I feel confident I'm going to tell the world right now is yet another Alberta Indie Dream match. Very excited for that one. But he's starting to get fresh opponents and opponents that he wouldn't have had the chance to face in Monster Pro Wrestling, which, I say it ad nauseum, but that's why you got to be sharing talent.
Well, and you said it yourself, like, regardless of how great his run was in MPW.
And it was a great run.
Yeah, it has to come to an end, and the guy has to go out, expand, and wrestle new people. Especially if you want to see a guy continuously develop and continually be entertained by a guy. If we're being
100%.
realistically.
Yeah, 100%. And he's one of the smartest guys I've ever had the pleasure of speaking to, at least on this podcast, as far as just the way that guy thinks on the business side of wrestling and how he wants to present himself. And he said it himself, and I'm sure he'll bring it up next time we have him on the podcast. Like, he constantly wants to be doing something new and making the move to Real Canadian Wrestling or wherever he had chosen to go is I think, like you said, it's a logical next step for him. So great debut. He got to tag, like, it's nice to see. February 9th is the first time he tags with Maniac of 2019. Tag struggles back after not tagging together but one time last year in 2018. So
really
nice to see the struggle back. Maniac, we spoke about it. We know we spoke about it a little bit on last week's edition, or I guess Wednesday's edition, or whenever this Mike the referee chose to put it out, because he hasn't told me yet, because admittedly I haven't asked him. This is completely my fault, but I haven't asked him when he's putting it out by the time we're recording this podcast. So sorry I haven't asked Mike. This one's my fault. But either way, Maniac, I want one of those Strugglicious t-shirts that you guys were repping last night. You told me you were going to get them. They're one night only. I would like one, please. Outside of that, great debut, great debut, as I was telling them, because I'm just in love with Matt Riddle right now. Great debut for Chris Parrish. Very excited to see if he steps into the championship scene sooner rather than later, because moving on, you and I both saw it at the last show. You spoke about it actually on the edition of Quick Calls that you appeared on with Andre. Andrew Hawks is now the Real Canadian Wrestling champion. And I think a cool move. I haven't seen enough of him, and I do feel bad, because a lot of guys and ladies in Real Canadian Wrestling, I'm a lot more experienced with watching just from going to shows out of town and that sort of things. But Andrew Hawks is a really, really great wrestler, man. I thoroughly enjoy watching him.
Yeah, from the show that we saw, he's immensely talented.
100%. A guy who's great on the mic. This isn't anything, and just to speak to last night's show a little bit, the one on February 9th, nothing against Vince Austin, who is one of the greatest guys in, I'll say Canadian, if not independent wrestling. Guy who's so just dedicated to who he is. I even struggle to say character, because I just think Vince Austin is Vince Austin. But I would have loved to hear Andrew Hawks get more time on the mic last night, purely because I love hearing the guy talk. The NVR is just such a unique faction in wrestling in Alberta. There's not really anything quite like them, in the sense that even looking at PWA, you don't really have any stables or anything like that with a gimmick. And rightly so. Like, not that they trying to toe the line here, because both are great. Like, I love the Western Lions, but you can't say they've got like a gimmick like the NVR do or anything like that.
This is true.
But the NVR, they are not only great wrestlers, but they are so committed to the Newfoundland Viking Rage. Gunnar the Pagan Destroyer, best entrance ever. Love the guy to death.
One of the beasts.
A hell of a wrestler. Just hell of a monster. And between Vince Austin and Andrew Hawks, I think they're well set up for a long run with Andrew Hawks as the champion, should things stay well in NVR country, because I know you didn't see it last night, but and I can only really speculate here, but The NVR lost the tag team championships last night in Real
No
Canadian
way.
Wrestling.
Damn.
Yep, 100%. I was completely surprised, and that's not a knock on the Sexy American Superstars.
It's just heartbreaking.
Well, yeah, it was completely surprising. I thought they were going to go on, like, for lack of a better way to put it, like, I know it's only a 3-man faction, but like an Evolution-style run where they hold every championship. Like, at some point, one of them grabs it.
Would have been feasible.
Yeah, 100%.
Could still happen. But I would have liked it to
you're not
happen
wrong.
sooner rather than later.
100%. But either way, the Sexy American Superstars are now your Real Canadian Wrestling Tag Team Champions. And for me, I don't know if there is any teased tension between the NVR or anything like that. One thing I was surprised by, no Andrew Hawks at ringside during the Tag Team Championship match, which was odd to me given that they'd already made Newfoundland Viking Rage rules, or sorry, Commissioner Irishman had made Newfoundland Viking Rage rules applicable in this match, which no disqualifications, false count anywhere, that sort of standard foo-for-ah.
What a shit show.
Yeah, 100%. What a shit show. And great match. Thoroughly enjoyable match, but it was surprising not to see him out there. And anytime a team loses any championships of any sort, I always wonder if there's going to be any sort of in-ring tension or anything like that, because while I love them as the Newfoundland Viking Rage, I think all three of those guys are guys who are more than capable of going on runs on their own.
I completely agree, especially Gunnar, man. I'd love to see that guy make a run for the heavyweight championship.
Man, a Gunnar versus Hawks. Just even fantasy booking on that side, I would love it at some point.
Yeah.
Last but not least, as far as Real Canadian Wrestling goes, actually, you know what? I shouldn't say that, because I just want to give a shout out to a couple of great matches from last night. As always, I've got to mention how good Top Talent is. I thoroughly enjoy watching Heavy Metal and Big Jess Youngblood wrestle. Those guys are they're fantastic heels, but they're entertaining. You know what I mean? Like, for lack of a better comparison, it's like they can be a lot like Kevin Owens in the sense that they can sit there and trash talk, but it's still hilarious, and I absolutely love it. And I also want to give a shout out to Stone and Pride, who, man, those guys tear the house down every time they wrestle.
Pride is a beast.
They both are, man. I know you haven't really seen enough of Stone outside of that last RCW match, but, like, man, the guy's a stud as well. So big shout outs to those guys as well. Last thing I want to mention is a big shout out to Christian Strife, who was out for an undetermined concrete amount of time with a knee injury. Man, that guy is just a hell of a wrestler. The fact that I believe he was injured when he went into that match on the 23rd for RCW. Not the 23rd. Was it the 23rd?
I think so.
I think it was.
I think you are correct.
Yep. The fact that I think he went into that match injured, like, what a testament to the
intestinal fortitude.
Yeah, the balls on that guy.
Yeah, better
to put it crudely. But hell of a guy. Can't wait to see him back in the ring. Psyched for you to come back, Strife. So moving on, a couple of quick things to touch on the PWA end, because number one, talked to Thaddeus Archer a couple of weeks ago. Lots of interesting stuff coming out of Edmonton on his end. I would stay tuned. You know, I don't want to give a ton away. I can't give a ton away as far as the upcoming show in Edmonton, but what I can tell you is they also had a show in Calgary on February 9th. By all accounts, just another hell of a show. Like, PWA just puts on a great show, and I really regret the fact I haven't been able to go as often as I have liked to be able to, purely on the fact that, like, sometimes shoot life gets in the way, and I couldn't get in the way of going to Calgary because that's a lot of gas.
That is a ton of gas.
100%. So
that's lots of gas.
Anytime there's an Edmonton show and the team doesn't play, very excited to go out and see PWA. I highly recommend, just to make my cheap plug early, if you have a local independent wrestling promotion, go and support your local independent wrestling promotion, because a lot of the guys and gals that you see out there could be the future superstars of tomorrow. Hell, they're great right now. I know a lot of people out there are great wrestlers at this level. Like, especially with competition the way it is, man, lots of people are going to be getting signed sooner rather than later.
This is true.
So, either way, let's tune in. People coming into PWA, not signed, but special appearance coming up Not at the next show, but coming up at the 18th anniversary show in March.
Going to be a great show.
Very, very excited to check out Jeff Cobb wrestle for the first time live.
Yeah, he's a freaking beast, man.
Super excited for that one. We've also got TJ Wilson making an appearance, who most people would know as Tyson Kidd.
Hey, no kidding. I didn't know that.
Yep, he's
Wow.
going to be appearing at the 18th anniversary, man, and very excited to talk to him. Obviously, the guy who trained both Brandon Van Danielson and Michael Richard Blaze, two of the top talents out there right now. You can't say they're not.
I can't say that they're not.
So, but that's coming up. Last night's show was apparently, again, a barn burner. Both Sheik Shabazz and Sean Moore retained their titles in that four-way. I forget what the match is called, but basically both of the titles were up for grabs.
Unification?
No, not a unification. It was a four-way match. The Western Lions were part of it as well.
It's a double championship match, I
Yep.
guess.
And as per usual, a great match. There's
what
no
else?
other way I can put it.
What else would you expect?
Right? Sheik Shabazz is one of the top guys out there too. And Sean Moore, I mention it every time I get the chance, but he is a guy who is, I don't want to say surprising, but like,
Flies under the radar.
yeah,
No
because
question.
a lot of people know who he is, but he's not a guy that I think gets the recognition he deserves, because he is one of the top guys out there as well.
Good theme song.
Can't say that enough. 100%.
Mhm.
100%. And that is an underrated thing in independent wrestling, is having a great theme song that people remember you for. Attaboy, Sean Moore. The other thing that I had to bring up is I don't know if he's fully turned, but Titan last night aligned with the Thickness
Are you kidding?
against the Millennial Rebels,
Are you kidding?
Colton Kelly and Kenneth Anthony. Yeah, so
Damn.
apparently match ended in a DQ due to Dr. Kyoto, who I sing his praises, but as far as like a manager goes, that bastard.
Yeah, what a rat bastard.
100%. Great guy, I would assume. Never met him. That
Exactly.
rat bastard.
Gives you every right to call him a rat bastard.
Exactly. So apparently he sprayed red mist, I believe, on the Thickness, leading to a DQ. But
Disgusting.
100%. But you can expect this one will keep going, man. And it's one of the best long-term feuds in, man, I feel confident saying, in independent wrestling. I really do. The Thickness has come over huge as far as this goes. Colton Kelly has firmly established himself, if he hadn't already, as one of the top heels in independent wrestling in Alberta. I'm loving the thing, man. So, as far as I'm concerned, that's it. That's all. Real Canadian Wrestling is running sooner rather than later. Oh, sorry. I've got to mention Pure Power Rumble is coming up sooner rather than later. I believe, if I remember correctly, that is also on February 23rd. No, excuse me, 16th, weekend before. So
You were close enough.
exactly. If you go and watch wrestling in Lethbridge, go on the 16th though, because if I give you that date of the 23rd, you're going to be sorely mistaken when you go and check out the Power Rumble in Lethbridge. I'd highly recommend it. I know I've got a friend out there in Lethbridge right now who would love to go and check out some independent wrestling. Hell, I'll buy your ticket, Marcus. You can enjoy that show if you go out. Other than that, Hayden, I think that's it. That's all as far as major news in Alberta wrestling, which means that's it. That's all
You
for
said that a number
episode
of
30.
times. Yeah, and what an episode it was.
I know. A lot of laughs, a few tears shed, and just a few beautiful moments here with my fellow brother of discussion on Over the Top Rope. Hayden, where can people find you
I'm
if
crying
they're
right
looking
now.
for you out there on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter, HLoveMillionaire, no E.
Great life advice as well as a Twitter handle.
That's it. I'm not giving out any more personal information.
Yeah, don't add us on Facebook.
Yeah, please don't.
That's Twitter's fine for everyone. Please don't add us on Facebook.
Where can they find you, Spencer?
Well, you can find me on Twitter as well, SpennyLove_WCS, or you can find either one of the companies that I am proud to be aligned with, whether it be Backbreaker Media. You can find us at Backbreaker Medi. There's no A at the end because, as Mike the ref likes to say, we're Canadian, so there's no need for an A. We say it already. Also, if you're interested, Win Column Sports is pretty well everywhere on social media, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. On Facebook or Instagram, you can find us at Win Column Sports. On Twitter, it is WC Sports CA. Hayden, it's been a great episode of Over the Top Rope. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We've covered basically everything as promised from the wide world of wrestling, whether it be your biggest major promotion, the WWE, your newest promotion, AEW, or the fantastic wrestling here in Alberta. And as always, I'm happy to do it with you. Don't forget, friends, tune into Win Column Sports for all of your previews, reviews, and breaking news from the world of wrestling, and your weekly editions of Over the Top Rope on Backbreaker Media.